Hello and welcome to Film Companion South. We are now looking at the last AskBR of a horrible year. Fortunately for me, in my line of work, we had stuff, movies coming all through, but theater shut down. People got shut down. Some people had salary reductions. Some people had jobs. And I'm not going to make this a lectury thing or a messagey thing, but there's just a sense of, my God, everything you take for granted and plan for the future, it can just come crashing down in 1 second. So, carpe the effing diem. This is really what I want to say. Live for the day, enjoy each day as if it's your last day, which is not to say you go and infect yourself, but just to kind of, make plans, but keep those plans flexible so that, you save some for the day as well. End of advice. So now we go to the Ask BR episode and stay tuned till the end because we are going to be announcing the questions that get the prizes, the top three prizes as awarded by Fully Filmy, the coolest pop culture store in the southern states of India and hopefully soon in the northern states as well. So Srinath Ganapati asks, it's been a very strange year without multiple releases. What do you feel about it? I would say actually it's been a bit of a relief not having to go to theaters, ending up seeing bad movies and come back with that fit of badness like a throbbing headache and then having to write the review. Like I have seen bad movies, but it's at least from home. So you don't feel like, I traveled all that way and then I saw that and then I came back and I have to write this review. Now it's like, okay, let me just grit my teeth, get through this, write the review. It's a better feeling, trust me. Observer 360 says, let's discuss the elephant in the room. Will Jallikattu win the Oscar? Right? But I definitely think this has a very good chance because the international filmmaking language is there. Language is really universal. The tale is very universal. It's not a story so much as some kind of an archetypal fable, like a commentary kind of thing, which is not necessarily tied down to just one place or religion. So even if people don't understand the society and the politics of that particular place in Kerala, I wouldn't have got a lot of it as well. But I'm saying, foreigners would be further removed from it, right? But I don't think that affects the power of this movie and Lee Jose's phenomenal direction. So it's just so outstanding that you just want to keep seeing the movies, like just the way one scene propels to another kind of thing. So it's just an amazing film, and I really hope it brings the Oscar. And how cool it'll be if a southern film comes up with the Oscar, right? Suraj George says, when you look back, do you think 2020 will be seen as a major turning point for OTT content in Tamil cinema, that we may now start seeing more series and small scale movies premiering in OTT in lieu of a theatrical release? Yes, I do think this will be a turning point. This might have happened like 10 years down the line, but I think COVID has really accelerated this. I do think it's the end of theaters. It's no longer going to be feasible because people are just going to find it very difficult to go to movies that don't demand the theater experience. Actually, I would say I'm a bit of the reverse because I'd love to see big scale movies on the big screen, but what is really breathtaking for me is watching a small movie, like a small scaled movie on a big screen with that bigness of the screen and every little atmospheric detail being described out there. See, big screen is big films are noisy, blockbustery, all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm saying that they actually work well on a computer or a TV set or whatever it is. I mean, you're not going to lose too much, Whereas it's like you take Gamak Ghar, which is a Maithili language film that's playing on Mubi right now. If you haven't, please watch it. It sees the passage of time through the viewpoint of a house. It's called Gamak Ghar again. I just watched it and I was like, wow, I really wish I had watched this on the big screen because the detailing, the atmosphere, you feel the presence of air in that movie and the delicacy. Those are the things that I think we'll miss the most, but there's no going back because I don't think people will line up to see a Gamakhar anymore. Not that they were lining up, but I don't think that's going to happen anyway. And yeah, I think we're at the brink of a new era or whatever you want to call it, but that's what's going to happen. Review Book says, recently we could see more anthologies from collaboration of top filmmakers in South India. Will this trend continue even after the opening of theatres? I don't think so because I don't think we are a very anthology friendly movie going culture. That's a very Peter thing to do. I think it's like people exposed to foreign series, foreign films, etc. They might be interested in it. Otherwise, we want the full meals, right? We want to like sit down and get something for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I don't think seeing one little short story, play out like that. I don't think it's going to be theatrically very viable. I don't see that. I mean, I'd love to be proved wrong, but somehow I don't see that. Girish says, not a single so-called big star have released their movie this year. Does OTT make them very less money? Why Surya had Suru, which was the most talked about OTT release in Tamil, along with Pavakadaigal. But yeah, the it's the money thing. Plus, there is also the belief, long entrenched belief, that Tamil stars get their stardom only from theatrical releases, right? It's like the stardom comes only from theatrical releases. So you need that first day, first show fuss and this and that, as opposed to people waking up at like, I don't know, 8 a.m. and saying, okay, I'm going to have my coffee, let me watch Suru Red Portrait. That doesn't have the same impact. So I think that's why some people have been holding back. But the thing is, how long can certain big stars keep holding on to their films if you're going to have 50% reduction of theater seats and things like that? Because see, all these stars take a lot of money. So when that money translates into a budget, the theaters may not be, or the distribution chain may not be able to support those budgets for those stars. So I have a feeling that if stars want to continue, releasing their films in theaters, if they remain open, because now there's some mutant new COVID strain. My God, the science fiction just got sciencier and fictioner. So it's like, if that all happens, then yeah, we are left with people, who are really going to have to cut down on their salaries if they want to keep this tradition viable. Mulugu Nilotpal asks, the biggest takeaway in the year 2020 was the recognition of fantastic actors like Satyadev, Goparaju Ramana, etc. in Telugu cinema, with quality of content getting the prime place. What is your take on the way OTT platform got a boost post-lockdown? Yes, all these, I think Telugu cinema especially benefited because a whole bunch of people from other states got to see movies like Middle Class Melodies, Color Photo, Uma Maheshwara, and all these actors that got recognized. I think it's amazing because, I think so far it was just, you got the big releases, but now the small ones are going to be forced into the OTT pipeline. There is no other way to do that because, they will not be supported by people going to big theaters anymore. So this has been a great way for, and let's face it, some stars, as cruel as this sounds, I'm not saying it's cruel at all. Some faces belong on the small screen and some faces belong on the big screen. It has nothing to do with acting or whatever it is. I would say typically stars with charisma and star wattage, these are the guys that you want to see on the big screen. Now, some people just don't have it. They may be a very good actor, they may be a beautiful performer, like Pankaj Tripathi, for instance. I don't want to take any southern names, but let's take Pankaj Tripathi, right? He's a fantastic actor. You want to see him in every movie. But is he a person to see whose movie you would line up in, like, and go for a first day, first show film? Probably not. Not because he's not a good actor. He's a great actor. But there's a certain thing called star presence, and that, like a Bachchan has, or like, that kind of stuff, like, here Rajni has, whatever that thing that drives a star, that is going to be valued in future theatrical releases, is what I feel. And we come to the first question, which wins the Fully Filmy Award, which is from Joseph. Do you think lockdown helped Malayalam movies to break the language barrier? Definitely, definitely, and definitely. Because what happened earlier was that I think only a very few centers that released these movies, the cinephiles in Bangalore, the cinephiles in Bombay, the cinephiles in maybe one theater in Pune or something like that, these guys would gathered up and watch, I don't know, Angamali Diaries or something like that. And everybody would kind of be talking only about Angamali Diaries or the new Fahad Fasil movie or whatever. But now there have been so many releases that the breadth of Malayalam cinema has suddenly been exposed to, kind of a thing. And whenever like I saw Tuvana Tumbikal after, I don't know, like 20 years or something like that on Hotstar, I'm like, wow, what, it's so amazing, because otherwise, where would you watch it? With subtitles, right? So there's an entire catalog of older films. I saw Yamanika. That was again like a subtitle print. I mean, like, amazing stuff, right? I mean, movies coming out with some of them, but on Hotstar you find so many older Malayalam films, and it's really getting you back to that era of Doordarshan, where we used to spend Sunday afternoons watching films, regional language films as they were called then, on TV with subtitles, and that whole thing has come back. I think this is what the theaters are really going to have to fight, because in the big like let's take the Chennai, Chengalpet, and Coimbatore, which are called the big C's, right, or big collection areas because of the multiplexes, the prices of the tickets, and all that kind of stuff. Now, these A centers, these three A centers, I think have seen maximum adoption of OTT. And now people are saying, I don't have to wait for a movie to come because I have enough of a backlog of movies to watch. My watch list is bigger than my arm. I don't need to kind of, wait for this movie to come. I can wait for 2, 3 weeks and then watch this movie. Unless, okay, once in a while I want to make an exception and step out and do something like that. But I think this library of movies is what's really become valuable during this OTT phase. Tester101 asks, do you think it's a great idea to release a remake movie on OTT platforms because people can easily access the original version of these movies? I think it's a great idea because, see, 9 out of 10 people don't like watching subtitled movies. So, they would rather watch the same thing dubbed into their own language. And yeah, so it's either a dubbed version or a remake version. So I think the remakes are actually perfectly safe because it's only us, the people, cinephiles, right? Only we end up watching movies in other languages. Otherwise, 90% of the people, what they do is they watch films in their own language, that is, I don't know, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, whatever, and then they will go and maybe watch one or two big Hindi movies and they'll watch the English film. So that will be like the general thing that they watch. They will not be watching, Marathi, Bengali, this, that, and all that. Cinephiles will keep track of it and watch it, but the general audience does. So the general audience, that these remakes make a lot of business sense. Abhishek Kumar says most of the films that released in the lockdown were meant for theatrical releases, and perhaps that's why the reason we've still found the repetitive tropes that are found in many formulaic South movies. Yeah, I think so. But then this year is a little difficult to gauge in terms of. I think we can only gauge it in terms of whether OTT has captured the minds of the people. And I think we can say, well, at least the upper class, upper middle class people, yes, it's caught on. So really, really majorly more than it had earlier. Other than that, I don't think we can dictate. In the southern, because there's FC South, I'm only talking about southern show. Whether people will watch a particular kind of show, whether people will watch a particular kind of movie. If it goes too different, like see Martin Scorsese. The Irishman was released directly on Netflix, right? Because they made the movie, they produced the movie. Is somebody going to give one of our creators that kind of budget and say, do whatever you want to do, like I don't care, when will people watch it? These are all things that are going to happen in the next 3 years, 2 years, and that will be really interesting to watch. Actually, for me, even something like Pavakadaigal coming on Netflix was very, very surprising, because the general trend has been to, like, make people happy, make people cheery, give them a feel good experience. This has been a tough year, and then at the end of the year, boom, we get this series about caste and honor killings and all this kind of stuff. So that's surprising, right, for a network, because a lot of people might not want to watch such gory, gruesome stuff because of the mood it creates, simply because of that, not because of the quality at all, because it's like, oh my god, do I really want to put myself through that? Especially when you watch what happens to Sai Pallavi and with a baby and things like that. There are many people who want light-hearted, nice movies where the good guy wins at the end, and I think that trope, if you will not go away for a bit. But then, is there going to be a transitional audience that will say, like, I'm not like the theatrical audience at all, I only care about good content in Tamil, Hindi, Kannada, Malayalam? We'll have to wait and see. Top Film says, for the general audiences, took lockdown as a chance to watch a lot of good movies that they missed, but how was it for a critic like you who has almost seen all the movies already? I haven't seen it. I'm not some freak, okay? It's like I just see like maybe 1 or 2 movies a day. Is that much? Like, come on. Yeah, no, there's tons of stuff that I haven't watched. Yeah, it's like even among the so-called canonical classics, there are so many films that I haven't watched, or I haven't watched a good enough print, and I suddenly, when I look at it at movie or something like that, I'm like, wow, this is looking amazing. So, and plus, I don't think you watch a movie once and it goes out of your life, because you react to a movie depending on how you're feeling on that particular day of that particular month of your that particular year of your life. And 5 years later, things might have happened in your life that make you process some events in the movie very differently. So I really don't get it when people say they saw a movie 10 years ago and it sucked, and like, because at that point maybe you thought it sucked, but if you want to give it a chance now, maybe you'll find that that movie doesn't suck that much, because you have now kind of had certain life experiences that bring you closer to the stuff that's happening in this movie. So maybe you won't find it so slow anymore, maybe you won't find it so boring anymore, because you've grown up yourself and you've accommodated a lot of other things inside your head. So I would say that it's always a pleasure to rediscover movies, not just watching films that are new all the time. Shruti says, is it feasible for filmmakers to continue making content for OTT? I personally miss sensible commercial cinema and hope to see it alive again. I really hope so too. I hope that when OTT begins to actually sponsor films and make films, which has not been happening right now to a large extent, except for these anthology type things, I hope that they keep in mind that we have a very rich spread of, just like we have a rich spread of food throughout the south, the kind of movies we like to consume are also like across the spectrum, and we get to see good well written commercial fare, that doesn't have to keep giving you some punchy thing every 2 minutes, and can actually tell a story with some pause, taking some time off, and giving us this great experience that once upon a time we used to get from watching commercial films. Yeah, I hope so. Vijay Duraswamy asks, Tamil cinema has always experimented on the mainstream. There isn't a separate artsy movement, but with the OTT boom spawning all this kind of stuff, would this be an accelerant for the artsy movement? As of now, no, because in a conversation that I had with an OTT player, they said very clearly that their aim is first to penetrate the markets, and you cannot penetrate the markets with really offbeat stuff. You have to give them lots of mainstream stuff and make them feel I'm going to be happy watching these movies. See, there's a reason that formula thrives in any industry in all over the world, right? I mean, that is what people like. And that is why that formula keeps getting rejuvenated. If you say you don't like a particular formula, it'll die off. Like at one point, there were historicals, quasi-mythologicals, being made in Tamil, and they were really popular. Now they're nowhere because it's like, nobody watches them. So one point that Visu kind of movie was all over the place. Now it's nowhere. So things evolve as things go along. So whether that taste is what will keep deciding what keeps getting made largely. Artsy films will always be a sideline thing. There will always be a sidebar, but hopefully a sidebar that we can get access to more often, as opposed to saying, oh my god, that film opened, it ran only for 2 weeks and then I couldn't watch it. That won't happen anymore because we'll get that on Netflix or whatever and we can watch it here. Abhishek Kumar asked an interesting question. OTT doesn't reveal the actual number of viewers for any particular film, so on what basis will the films be classified as hits, flops? Isn't that beautiful? You don't have to care about that shit anymore. You don't care. See, anyway, why should we care, right? I mean, the hero has to care because that will determine his market rate. But only the distributors, the hero, the exhibitors, only they have to care whether a film is a hit or not. For me and you, the only thing that matters is it a good film or not? As in, depending on our subjective tastes. Why should we care if some hero's movie does 100 crores or 300 crores or whatever it is? It's like, I mean, why do we even care? I'm really glad if this goes out of the system and we start like not knowing what happens and we just look at the movie as a piece of art of its own, and that's all. And we come to Fully Filmies. Prize number 2 question of the session. Without Wax asks, which movie would you pick as a Zeitgeist of 2020 representing movie, either through the content or making process? Example, See You Soon, and why? I would definitely say See You Soon because for me, it was also a representation of how the corona era is. We're all locked up, we're all connected to each other through screens all the time, and you can actually lead a life through the screen. You can follow a trail through the screen, you can track down a person through the screen. And, I'm sitting at home and ordering Swiggy, and it's like somebody's doing kitchen stuff for me via the screen and bringing it home to me. It's incredible. And for me, this movie was made on screens, and it just so typically represents 2020 for me. Another movie I'll say is Kartik Da, I'll say at the end. I know that this movie has a lot of haters and maybe a few people like me who like the movie, but it's not about the quality, right? I think why it's one of the most defining movies of this year is because it shows that a big name director can revisit his property and make a smaller kind of film. Look at the number of views it's got. I mean, people will watch Stars. For me, it's very important because stars like Trisha and Simbu, they got down and said, I don't care if it's a 10-minute or 12-minute or 15-minute film. I'm just going to work for the sake of, having some fun. Let me just go. And the minute stars start doing that, the minute directors start saying things like, let's not worry about the budget, let's not worry about the locations, let's just tell a story for the heck of telling a story, I really think that's a good sign. And that will encourage a lot of people to come out and make different topics, right? Because on screen, if the same movie had come out, there will be the morality police who will say, what, she's married to somebody else now, how can you go calling her, that kind of stuff and all happening. On YouTube, nothing happens. You can really push the envelope if you want to. So again, this is not about whether you like the film or not, but what the film represents, because it shows that a unique kind of content can be created for OTT platforms. And I think that's really another sign of the times movie. Loki says, with Penguin, Ponmagal Vandal, Silence, Mukutiyamman, Kape Ranasingam based on women releasing on OTT was a pattern. Do you think Tamil cinema is finally changing, or is it just a thing where female movies aren't going to earn much in theaters, so why not make minimum profit with OTT? I don't want to answer this question, but you're making me answer this question. I think it's the latter. I think they just realized that these films are not going to make any money anyway, so might as well get a good profit, because at home they will watch, right? They will watch these movies. So I think that's what's happening. I think that's what's really happening, because apart from, I think, Nayantara's films, I don't think, you know, we have that kind of very, very few, maybe, like, though I'll tell you what is so amazing about Kape Ranasingam, that movie was a paid film, right? And it made some 12 to 13 crores, like when a few days after it's opened, the Z guy told me, and I was like, Jesus, that's an amazing figure for a heroine-oriented project, right? Because even though Vijay Sethupathi is there, he's like a supporting actor. He's like a side player. He's great in the movie, but he's not the center of the movie. So for that movie to have earned that much, I mean, again, it's a little hard to say, were people so starved of content that they paid up money, or are they really willing to pay up money when they hear certain names like Vijay Sethupathi and Aishwarya Rajesh? I don't know there's no, I mean, there are no references, so you can't form a pattern. But I think it's amazing that that movie did so well, because I really liked the movie, and I think that was a really good thing to hear in this OTT ecosystem. Hari says, will Master be an offbeat Vijay film or a typical mass commercial film with normal Vijay elements? Pretty excited how the team hasn't opted for an OTT release. There must be something about this movie. Well, why the movie hasn't opted for an OTT release is very obvious, because the financials haven't been like viable. So holding on to theatrical at this point by anybody is basically a gesture that's being made for financial considerations, not because they want to say, oh, this movie should only be released in theaters or something like that. I mean, they want that, of course, but I don't think anybody is going to risk the success or failure of a movie on such an unpredictable thing as the opening of theaters, or the sustained viability of theaters over the next few months at least. What kind of film do I think it would be? I think it will be like a what Lokesh did with Kaidi. I think, where you take a generic template and kind of put a star on top of it. I think that's the kind of movie it's going to be. So, which means that it will still be different enough from the other Vijay movies, but perhaps, I mean, I don't see, because it was made theatrically, for theatrical, I don't see them as taking too many chances, because these movies are just big monsters. They need to appeal to like everybody, right? So if you make too niche and too specialized films, then you might just end up pissing off a lot of people who basically come to screen to say Taleva or whatever it is and just enjoy themselves. So they are not going to, I don't think it'll be too different, but I will be really interested if an OTT film is being directed with a major star and a major director, and then see what happens, because then they don't have to answer to these star fans who kind of say, I want to whistle every 5 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever. So Prekshaka asked this question. It is usually said that directors get more freedom on OTT, but I've also heard about few instances where OTT platforms do all data analysis on what works and ask directors to exclude very few things from the script. That's very true. But they are very specific about what they've done, because they've studied the market, and they know that this will appeal to this and that will appeal to that, and if you can, you don't want to show this much of gore and that kind of a thing. So yeah, so most of the directors who've done like even Power Kathegal and all, they've had to adhere to very strict timelines and things like that. So yeah, they have been given some rules, but I think it's good to kind of not fight everything. I think sometimes it's just good to see what the market is like. Just test the waters. If it appeals to you, yeah. So if Vetrimaran decides he's not going to do another OTT film after this, fine. But at least, he played by certain set of rules and said, okay, this is what I can do. Now it's up to him to decide whether he wants to continue doing it or not. So I don't know that there is any film in the world that, unless you are producing it yourself, where you get like unlimited freedom to do whatever you want. There is always a star saying, in the scene matalame, or some producer is saying, can you have a punchier interval block or something like that. So there is always a producer saying, or a star saying something like that. So there is no completely or the editor at the editing table may say, oh, it's going to 3 hours, can we bring it down to 2:30 and let's try and figure out what we can cut out or something like that. So I think very few directors have actually released movies that they had in their head. But OTT might be a way to do that if it goes well in the future, and if directors learn to coexist in a good way with these systems. Madhusudan J asks, best three platforms to watch. Criteria could be quality of streams and search, or whatever else you feel. For me, the best three film platforms are typically Amazon, Netflix, and Mubi. I mean, those are the things I keep revisiting all the time because Mubi gives me all the old films, the foreign films. Amazon and Netflix gives me all the the shows, the sitcoms. I love British detective shows, so I get to watch those. And of course, yes, there are other platforms as and when something comes up and stuff like that, but as of now those are my regular haunts. Like I look at my watch list in each of these platforms and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like how am I going to finish this in this lifetime? But yeah, it's a nice first world problem to have, but it's still there. Indira S asks, how has a critic's role evolved with non-theatrical releases, multiple web series, and accessibility becoming less of an issue with the current OTT dominant environment? Actually, with critics, it's not been a problem at all because we've been getting screeners, we've been getting films to watch, we've been getting stuff to review, we've been having fun putting up lists. It's business as usual. See, one thing is that earlier, when social media happened, right, the critic's role changed then because till then, people to a larger extent wanted the critic to say, should I go for this movie or should I not go for this movie? That's what they wanted the critic to do, right? And that's what typically critics did in these capsule size reviews. Social media suddenly happened, and suddenly they were like, the guy next door, the girl next door, the the office goer, people you meet at work. All these people were giving opinions about, oh, go watch this. It was great. I watched this. So the word of mouth that became the driver, the recommender of movies. So the critic's role changed from the recommender of a movie to an evaluator of a movie for its art. For me, at least, it became possible for a critic to focus solely on just the artistic aspects of the movie and not necessarily say, go watch this or don't go watch this. This is like one time watch. All that went away from general people's vocabulary because they had other people to do that. And now I think we're in for another round of evolution on what a critic's function is, because when something is available on OTT and when you can already sample 10 minutes and decide for yourself whether you want to watch it or not, why do you need a critic telling you anything, right? What are you going to now look at a critic for? That's going to be interesting, and I'm going to be interested in finding out because you guys decide what you want from people like me, so it's going to be fun. Vinay Lingampalli asks, what is your opinion on censorship for the digital content as well? It's terrible, terrible, terrible idea, but well, if it happens, and we live with it. But if they're going to, censor things, I would rather they use the Vaseline technique by, covering up the offensive bits or, just beeping out the parts instead of, asking entire scenes to be cut or things like that. That's just so offensive. Pranav P. Narayanan says, which movie do you think plays the most essential role in bringing people back to the theaters? Are we asking if any single movie is like that? I don't know, yeah, because see, before the pandemic, if you had asked me, if you had told me that Christopher Nolan's new movie Tenet would just end up doing this much box office worldwide, you know, I'd have laughed at you because but now look what's happened, because in the US it's practically a flop, and it's kind of made money outside. This is again not a test case because it was the first big movie out of the gate, and I guess audiences were still kind of reacting to it, whether we should go, whether we should not go, whatever. But now with news of a second wave, mutated, whatever happening, I don't know. Yeah, it's like if there's going to be like an actual a rush to go back to theaters, at least amongst the educated population, because I think that it's safer to be a little paranoid than expose large families and masses to, especially kids and like older people. I don't know if movie going is that essential an experience for them to kind of warrant this, though the kids will probably complain the most, but then I don't know. So I don't know if there's one movie like that can change the demographic, but if anything is there in the near future, then the biggest one is easy, obviously Master. But again, it depends on how theaters are at that situation and what happens. And so I would say between Master, Jagame Tandiram, and like Annate, that big slate that's coming out next year, if these movies make it to theaters, I guess they will give us a sense of how the direction is headed, whether nothing has changed at all, or if everything has changed, or some things have changed and some things haven't changed. We just have to wait and see. Natraj asks, are you being overcritical of movies like Sururai Potra? I get that your expectations are high for certain directors, but hearing a review sounding like the movie entirely disappointed you, it's not that bad a movie in my opinion. You said it yourself, in your opinion. In your opinion, it's not that bad of a movie. I didn't say it's a bad movie at all. I said it's a solid film, but no, it didn't check all the boxes for me. And I thought Surya was extraordinary, and I thought Sudha had staged some scenes well, and I really liked Aparna Balamurali's role. I mean, the one role that was like great from start to end. But no, the film didn't work for me as a whole. Because it was jumpy. It looked like too frantic for me. There wasn't much breathing space. So yeah, in my opinion, it could have been better. But why have we been discussing opinions here? Sharat 97 asks, do you think the COVID-19 pandemic was a final blow to shift middle and low budget films in India permanently into OTT platforms, given that even before 2020 most people went to theaters only to watch these so-called massively budgeted event films? Will filmmakers like Selva, Mishkin Bala, etc. will thrive here? I hope so. I hope they do, because this is a great way to have that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think they will. Gautam Isaac asks, since we have a ton of movie series streaming and OTT and our choices are infinite, does that mean that the next generation of actors cannot be superstars and also favorites will be reduced, right? Yes, because the choices are going to be infinite. You don't have to watch a star. You can just watch a movie and the movie becomes a star. The content becomes a star, and that's amazing. And finally, the fully filmy prize-winning question number 1 from the Truth Seeker. Why haven't we seen a solid web series like Scan 1992 in South Indian languages yet? Are our writers unwilling to write for non-film setups? Is it less lucrative than writing for films? This is my big question. Why aren't we doing these mega serials, right? But I think they got a head start. They started off with Hindi. They started off with Sacred Games and things like that. And so the concept stuck. When you have a high-profile Anurag Kashyap, Vikram Motwani, all these guys coming together with high-profile Nawazuddin and all that kind of stuff, then people suddenly say, oh, this is a new thing. This is like this 8, 10, 15 episode thing that I can watch at a stretch. So even people who did not know about like binge watch shows like I don't know, Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad or whatever, they suddenly got introduced to this concept because they had local names in it. And I think the day a local name comes and encourages local storytelling in a big, long format, I think that will be a new kind of entertainment for Tamil audiences, and probably more bad news for theaters. As much as I hate saying this, I don't know what's going to happen. So let's keep our fingers crossed, and thank you so much, Fully Filmy, for being a companion on this episode, on this journey. Take care, all of you, and from all of us at Film Companion South, wishing you a very, very happy 2021.